Hi everybody, Bernard here with the latest Citizen vlog, and it's a City Pass today, so we're going to go back to 1994, and specifically a date 20th of September 1994. And we're going to, a little subject today is a little bit like giant killings. I mean, we've struggled, haven't we, ourselves as a reasonably big club most of our history. With the giant killing. So we're going to have a look at the 20th of September 1994 today. Another little giant killing. Not by us, obviously, but we could never, I don't think it was us even beating anyone would be called giant killing, would it? Even when the mites of Europe that we've beaten. But there you go. So please, if you're new to these little Citizen vlogs, push that subscribe button, push the bell notification so you know when these little vlogs and City past and presents are coming out. So obviously I try and do like at least 3 or 4 of these City moments in time every month, and obviously to correspond with the City present, obviously little quizzes etc. I put out there as well. Yeah, so as I said, City have come undone many times against so-called lesser or lower league opposition in our history, haven't we? Perhaps other clubs certainly have their problems as well, similar stories to tell, but I'm sure that our cities are perhaps more interesting and embarrassing than others, but you know, that's just because we're probably so dyed in the wool. I mean, I'll mention a couple of teams and a couple of events happened on the same day that we suffered this event. Obviously, a bit later on, just to show you that obviously it's not just us, but it does feel like us sometimes who get the embarrassment of these defeats. This one does sort of get lost in history as well. It's not really picked upon, because in the end it didn't really matter, as we had a second leg in this, so it was a two-legged. I'm talking the League Cup, I'm talking the Coca-Cola Cup at the time. It was a two-legged thing, so we did have a chance to put it right. So obviously in the annals of disgrace, it doesn't perhaps sit there with some of the others, but I think it's interesting to look at it. You can't forget the shock. And this is it. This is what we're talking about today. You can't wait, can you? You probably looked it up since I've been doing this, but an almost full-strength Premier League outfit like Manchester City in 1994 travelled to Underhill. No, nothing to do with hobbits. Underhill was the home, of course, of Barnet. So there, Barnet FC, 3rd Division Barnet at the time. And we travelled there on Tuesday the 20th of September 1994 to play Barnet in the Coca-Cola Cup second round. First leg, of course, he always played the first legs away, so obviously more income for the smaller clubs in that. So we travelled to there on the Tuesday the 20th of September 1994. City, of course, we were managed by Mr. Brian Horton, obviously, at that stage. And we were 6 games into a new season, 1994-95, and it was a bit middling for City. I think we were 10th in the league at that point in time. We'd won 2, drawn 2, and lost 2. So it was okay. I mean, we'd had 3 away ties already in the league, and a couple of losses to the reigning champions at Arsenal, which was no disgrace, I suppose. Away at Chelsea, we'd lost there as well. But things were looking up, because the previous Saturday to this Tuesday, we'd actually gone to Sheffield Wednesday, actually gone to Hillsborough and got a draw there. So things were sort of looking up, weren't they? Barnet, well, nicknamed the Bees, obviously a headline writer's joy there, but I didn't see many of the City get stung on the headlines I've saved anyway in my little scrapbooks. But they were sort of buzzing along nicely in the 3rd division. After 8 games, they actually sat 3rd in the table. They'd won 5, drawn 1, and lost 2. The previous home game, they slammed our near neighbours, no, not United. They slammed our near neighbours Rochdale by 6-2 in the previous home game. Although they'd actually then went away and lost their first away game, where they didn't score, which was not the first, but this first game away from home they hadn't actually scored. They lost the next one anyway. But they had given 6-2 Rochdale a bit of a roasting at 6-2. Even their old general manager, they had 2 managers. They had a player manager who was the keeper, Gary Phillips, at the time, but they had what they call a general manager, and the general manager was an old adversary of City's as well, a certain Mr. Ray Clemens, who used to be in goal for, of course, Liverpool, obviously England as well, but he used to be in goal for England, and obviously we suffered at the hands of his Liverpool many times while Ray Clemens was about. We did get 1 or 2 victories over him, but it was always a hard battle with Liverpool, with Ray Clemens Liverpool under Ray Clemens in goal. So we turned up, didn't we? We turned up to Underhill. No Bilbo Baggins in sight or anything like that. And their danger man was a certain Scottish player called Dougie Freedman, who was actually, needless to say, a Premier League reject in the summer from QPR, from Queen's Park Rangers. They picked him up from Queen's Park Rangers during the close season. The City team that night, it was quite an impressive team. I mean, we didn't sort of have the squad to play too many youngsters, and you never really thought about playing youngsters in the cup games. They're important anyway, League Cup or FA Cup. So the City team that night was Colton, Edgehill, Hill, Vonk, Brightwell, Summerby, McMahon, Lomas, Beagrie, Walsh and Rossler. Subs were Quint, Foster and Dibble. So not a bad little team, as you can see. And what I'll do, I mean, I'll leave it to Mr. Paul Hinz to describe the outcome of the game. Obviously, you can tell it's a giant killing, so we didn't win it, did we? But let me just quote from Paul Hinz's article in the Manchester Evening News. Manchester City players can thank their lucky stars that they are home and away legs at this stage of the Coca-Cola Cup. Because if they weren't, the Blues would now be trying to explain one of the most humiliating defeats in the club's history. Shamefaced City would only have themselves to blame for the Main Road aristocrats got exactly what they deserved against a plucky Barnet side currently 63 places below them in the status, in which cost a princely sum of £12,500. Even our own journalists quote prices, £12,500 to assemble, all of it invested on their goalkeeper. It's hard to remember when City turned in a defensive performance so to match this appalling back four display, which shocked and angered manager Brian Horton. Richard Edgehill, Andy Hill, Michael Vonk and Ian Brightwell looked as though they had never met for the first time on the way to the match, with a total lack of understanding at the back, leaving enough gaps for the third division minnows to have rattled in half a dozen goals. City, of course, have already made a habit of conceding early goals this season in their away matches, but they excelled themselves last night with an embarrassed Hill handing a goal on a plate to Barnet hotshot Dougie Freedman, of course. It was bound to, wasn't it? Dougie Freedman with only 27 seconds on the clock. Why don't the Dolsey Blues just agree to start a goal down and have done with it? That early blunder set the pattern for the 90 horrendous minutes. He's not holding back, Paul, is it? 90 horrendous minutes in defence, which is going to give manager Brian Horton nightmares for months. Young Freedman alone could have walked out the ground with the match ball, while his lively co-strikers Junior Haynes and Lee Hodges both squandered chances when it looked easier to score. To be fair to the Main Road men, not all the team's departments were as inept as the defence. Barnet's eccentric keeper Gary Phillips, player manager, obviously educated at the same school as Bruce Grobler, had one of those inspired games when he would probably have stopped a howitzer shell. With the Blues creating almost as many chances as Barnet, Phillips saved with virtually every movable part, particularly in the final 20 minutes when City sub Niall Quinn, so he was only sub but he came on, threatened to demolish Barnet single-handedly. And when the gallant Phillips was beaten, the woodwork or the referee's whistle invariably came to his assistance. Paul Walsh and Steve McMahon both saw fierce shots rebound off the upright, while referee Steve Dunn felt obliged to rule out two City efforts, the first of which from a thunderous Vonk header 5 minutes before the interval looked perfectly legitimate. Hey, well, no change there, not getting the rub of the green, are we? City's only salvation from a dismal evening was the performance of a Niall Quinn, who came on for Rossler in the last 20 minutes. His first three headers would have produced 3 goals on another night, and for all their courage and determination, the Barnet defenders will not be relishing another dose of the Irishman's aerial warfare when hostilities are continued at Main Road. So there you go. Mr. Hinz didn't actually pull his punches there, did he, with that? The team ratings on the night. Let me just have a look at those team ratings on the night of the players. Colton got a 6. Edgehill a 4, Hill a 4, Vonk a 4, Brightwell a 4, Summerby 6, McMahon 5, Lomas 5, Beagrie 6, Walsh 6, Rossler 6. So obviously defensively took all the stick obviously on that one. Subs, Quinn 7, Foster 6, so they both came on. Our City man of the match, he was only on for 20 minutes, but City's giant caused havoc, so he gave it to Niall Quinn as the City man of the match. Just to make, let's see what Mr. Brian Horton thought of the game. Horton's verdict, this is in the Manchester Evening News. Take nothing away from Barnet, their players gave everything and kept going for the full 90 minutes, just as I knew they would. Their goalkeeper, Phillips, rode his luck at times, but he won the Man of the Match award and deserved it because he had an inspired match. I cannot remember seeing an away side create as many chances as we did. We hit the post twice and had 2 goals disallowed, and we were certainly mystified why the referee ruled out the effort from Vonk in the first half. But after saying that, the fact remains that defensively we were very, very poor. You would have thought we had learned our lesson about conceding early goals, but obviously we haven't. This time we were a goal down in under 30 seconds, and you simply cannot give the opposition that sort of start. Fortunately, the tie will be settled over 2 legs, so we will still have the chance to get it right when Barnet come to Main Road next month. So there you go. That was Mr. Horton's verdict. What about the fans? Well, I mean, there was a crowd. There's only a crowd of 3,120. I wasn't there. I have to admit. I'm sure some of you may have been there that you're watching this, because you've got that gallows sort of wanting to relive this, haven't you? Please put in the comments below if you were there. But yeah, 3,120 crowd. So obviously the City fans that were there. But obviously the next headline: City keeper is reported to the FA, and exclusive by Mr. Paul Hince. So this is sort of more in line. This sort of tells you what the fans were thinking about this game. Tony Coton, this is from Paul Hince's report again for the Manchester Evening News. Tony Coton is facing serious disciplinary action after being reported to the FA by one of his biggest fans. The Manchester City goalkeeper has been accused of provoking a group of Blue supporters and making obscene gestures towards them at the end of last Tuesday's Coca-Cola Cup tie at Barnet. The complaint to the FA has been lodged by a Watford-based City supporter, Kevin Puckering. You still around, Kevin? Give us a shout if you are. Who watched from the terraces when the Blues lost to the 3rd Division minnows. Coton's actions were disgraceful, he says. I admit that some of the fans who stayed behind after the game were shouting abuse at Steve McMahon and some of the other players, but it certainly wasn't directed at him. But then Coton came up towards us and kicked the ball as hard as he could into the wall in front of us. He then made an obscene gesture in our direction and stood there pointing to his chin as though he's inviting the fans to come and fight him. I am a big admirer of Coton, but there is no excuse for that behaviour. To make matters worse, he was the City keeper on the night, and he should have been setting an example to the other players. I was going in to telephone Manchester City and complain, but they probably wouldn't do anything about it, so I have contacted the FA. The FA will wait until they receive a report from Tuesday night's match referee, Stephen Dunn, before deciding what action to take. However, the popular Blues keeper could face a hefty club fine after admitting that he lost his temper. Says Coton, I went over towards the fans to applaud them for their support, and all I could hear was a load of 4-letter abuse directed at me and some of my teammates. We hadn't played well, but no one should have to put up with that level of abuse. I did kick the ball in their direction and make what is referred to as an obscene gesture, but it certainly wasn't directed to the decent City fans who were at Barnet, and if any of them were upset, then I have my wholehearted apologies. My actions were directed at that group of foul-mouthed morons who were spitting out abuse. They know who they are, and all the players know them too. City chairman Francis Lee has been informed of Coton's outburst, but he will discuss the incident with his fellow directors before deciding if internal disciplinary action is called for. So there you go. I think the fans were letting it know. I mean, I'm sure it was a minority. I mean, obviously there weren't thousands there in a crowd that small, but it'd be interesting. Any of you guys were there, please let me know in the comments. What have you got? Any special memories of that? But there you go. A bit more boisterous, obviously, some than others. But I thought, that's City fans. I mean, we're allowed to vent our anger, aren't we? Well, was it just getting away from the game? Was it just as I said, sort of commented at the start of the vlog? We always seem to be City who's on the end of these, but it's not, is it? I mean, obviously some other clubs who are big clubs as well are on the end of these sort of things. It's quite interesting because on the same night, I mean, we've got a list of all the results there, but what stood out for me was the 3 games that I've sort of just going to mention now. It was the Premier League's Everton, obviously Everton 2, Portsmouth 3. Obviously they were struggling in the Championship at the time. Portsmouth 3, so that was a bit of a giant killing act for Portsmouth over Everton, and Portsmouth actually did knock Everton out. You know, at least so that they actually went through at Everton's expense. I mean, you also had 3rd Division Walsall in the same division as Barnet 2. Premier League West Ham 1. West Ham did turn it round, mind you, in the Boleyn Ground or Upton Park, but it did take them extra time to do that. But at least they did turn it round. 3rd place Premier League Leeds, that was probably the biggest one of the night. Third place in the Premier League at the time, Leeds United, got beat at home by Mansfield Town. They got previous against us, haven't they? 3rd Division again in the same league as Barnet and who's it? Walsall. 0-1, but Mansfield actually went through as well. They actually drew at 0-0, so actually went through into the next round over Leeds. I think Leeds finished 5th that season in the league. So yeah, so it isn't just City, is it? But I must admit, if you ask me, it's funny that if you ask me to name sort of clubs who have these sort of giant killing things like us, Everton and West Ham certainly will spring to mind. Not so much Leeds, obviously, because a lot of the Leeds period they have been out of the top tier anyway. They're not probably as such a giant killing, if you like, but teams like Everton and West Ham, you always think, yeah, they're more likely to suffer like we do. Anyway, yes, we did get a second bite of the cherry, didn't we? We did get a chance to heal our stinging wounds, and obviously we won 4-1 at Main Road a little bit later. A 4-1 win sent us through with goals from Summerby Walsh and a brace from Mr. Quinn, who was obviously playing. Just as a side note for that, yes, Mr. Colton wasn't in goal. Tony Colton didn't play in goal last night. Mr. Andy Dibble had his first game of the season. So was there any link, perhaps, with the away game? Probably. I mean, no one will tell us, I suppose, unless you know, Tony or Andy, you're sort of listening to this vlog. Let us know. Was that the reason, just to keep him away from the fans on that night? So there you go. Yeah, we did. Obviously, we didn't go on to win the thing. It doesn't matter, does it? But all's well that ends well, as us City fans know. On this moment in time, obviously, of the 20th of September, 1994. Which was Barnet 1, Manchester City 0. But we say all's well that ends well. But it does tend to get forgotten over time, because obviously it didn't matter in the end, did it? Obviously we ended up going through 4-2 on aggregate. Thanks for joining me for this moments in time. I think we should perhaps rename it Disasters in Our Time as well, shouldn't we? I think that might be more interesting. Please check my links on screen. And if you're into movies as well, please, if you're into movies, check out my little movie vlogs and TV drama reviews, etc. If you're into movie and your TV, that'll be absolutely fantastic. And if you can look at my little website, moviegamenostalgia.com, for rare DVDs, movie posters and board games are on there. That'll be thumbs up to you. Absolutely fantastic if you can do that for me. And there we go. Until we meet again, perhaps on another Citizen vlog, past or present, please look after yourselves and stay safe. Let's say we're actually, as I'm recording this, obviously things are still not great, but we're getting through, aren't we? So that's all we can ever ask for until we meet again. Anyway, whatever you're going to do, have a great one. Look after yourselves, look after your friends, look after your family, and more importantly, let's look after each other. And please stay safe, please. See you again. Bye bye.